What if I told you that Legally Blonde has one of the best openings for a movie? You might already be saying, that's not possible because The Dark Knight exists, or what about The Lion King? When you compare those scenes to something like this, it doesn't seem that possible that they could even be on the same level. And that's exactly why it's so great. Legally Blonde is about misjudging people based on first impressions. This opening is your first impression of the movie, and it does such a good job at making you misjudge it. If you watch this opening again after watching the movie, you'll probably see it in a different light. And I'll even touch on some of those examples in this video. A good opening makes you interested and sets the stage for the rest of the movie. A great opening is memorable. Legally Blonde's intro accomplishes all of those things perfectly. This intro intrigues you in a very simple way, using two alternating but mysterious story sequences. One story follows Elle getting ready, though we never see her face. Her hidden identity piques our interest. We wonder who she is and what does she look like. We also see the many steps of her beauty routine, so we're interested to know what is she getting ready for. The second story follows several sorority girls excitedly signing a card for Elle. Tracking it for so long makes it seem important, so we wonder what on earth is this card for? This simple mystery behind the girl and the card is a fairly unique way to make us interested so fast. There are no ominous undertones, no threat of violence or increase in tension, and these are all tactics that are commonly used to hook you in quickly. In fact, this intro is the complete opposite. The song that's playing the entire time is Perfect Day by Hoku, which is an absolute banger of a song, I have to say. It's poppy and upbeat, and the lyrics are literally about the perfect day where nothing can go wrong. What I love about this is that it is so unexpectedly entertaining. You can't help but wonder how many more steps Elle could have in her routine, and what other rooms in the house we'll see. We just want to see more of this perfect, elite, bubblegum world. Not a single line of dialogue is used in 90% of this intro, yet the world building is so immersive that we don't need it. As we follow the girl on the bike, we see we're on a college campus. When we get a shot of Elle's binder, we know we're in the West Coast and at a made-up university called COLA, which is a stand-in for UCLA, because UCLA actually wouldn't let them use their name in the movie. At Delta Nu, Elle's sorority, the girls are in crop tops, skirts, and dresses. It's feminine, but also reflects the warm, sunny weather of California. The color palette of Delta Nu is a strategic one, pink and green. Pink is an ultra girly color, so this is perfect for a sorority. The green might seem like an odd choice, but it's actually not as odd as you'd think. For one, pink and green are complementary colors and look great on camera together. As well, the green shows up in these leafy accents throughout the house. It's meant to be reminiscent of LA palm trees, a hot greenhouse, and a tropical jungle, of which Elle is the queen of. In fact, Elle and her friends resemble tropical flowers, especially in their costume design, and you can see that imagery throughout the movie. That's also why there is a floral theme in Elle's room, and why there's bright tropical colors in the Californian salon. Establishing this floral, pink, and sunshine world is essential to contrast Harvard later in the movie. Unlike the West Coast, the East Coast has a muted earth tone color palette mixed with Vivian's blues. The earth tones are understated and reminiscent of colder autumns. The blues are serious and scholarly. When Elle is placed at Harvard, she's in such a starkly different world than what we associate her with, and what she's used to, and it makes her wildly out of place. You can see that she decorates her Harvard dorm room very similar to the sorority room in LA, with the sunset wallpaper and pink accents to bring her back to California. This room is where she feels most at home. It's also why Paulette's nail salon is reminiscent of California's colors, and why she feels at home there too. Establishing that California home setting so strongly in the beginning is what makes the references and contrast work so well in the rest of the movie. And as we know, Elle does not conform to what people at Harvard expect of her, but her undeterred confidence leads to misplaced judgments from her peers and authority figures. So let's talk about how these expectations also occur in the beginning. The opening scene clearly screams feminine. We see them engaged in typically feminine activities like aerobics. We see cheerleaders and a bathroom of girls pampering themselves. They're all wearing pink or pastels, and also 90% of them are blonde. This scene says we are in a girl's world. We know exactly what kind of movie this is, or do we? On first watch, it seems fun and happy, and some might say superficial. They're prioritizing looks, which some might say is shallow. Perhaps when you see this, you love it, and you think this is going to be a fun, lighthearted movie, or maybe you think it'll be annoying. Whatever the case, you probably don't think this movie is going to be that deep. But after finishing this movie, and we'll talk a little bit more about what happens in Elle's section, we realize we shouldn't be so quick to judge. You might see this scene differently if you watch it back. Perhaps you notice how kind and positive the girls are. As each sorority girl passes through the house with the card, the other girls sweetly wave and greet her. There's a strong sense of community, and there was no such energy at Harvard. In fact, enthusiasm and kind intentions are shunned. Perhaps you notice that all the pink and glitter are well coordinated and an excellent display of self-expression. You don't have to like this aesthetic, but you can't deny it's a harmonious and detailed one. These girls know what they like and are unapologetic about it. Perhaps you realize that the focus on looks isn't vain, but that these girls value self-care. And they're incredibly productive. They balance fitness, extracurriculars, and wellness into their daily routine. Maybe you notice that all the girls wear Tiffany bracelets, and a lot of them have the same chain belts. Yes, this is a sign of the wealth that they have, but that's just realistic because typically if you're in a sorority, you probably come from a wealthier background, most likely. But this extra detail also shows a strong sense of bonding and unity between the girls. At Harvard, everyone seems to be in competition with one another, especially when it comes to the case with Brooke. They think that Elle breaking her trust is worth it to win the case, but Elle doesn't do that because she values loyalty. And perhaps you realize that showing almost all blondes isn't to make them seem unoriginal or exclusive, it's to challenge the stereotype that all blondes are the same or that we can know what to expect from them. And maybe you recognize how thoughtful it was for the girls to think of Elle on a big night, to have so many girls involved and to put effort towards hand-making a card. It's a gesture of love, support, and encouragement. And this is something that we see several times throughout the movie that the sorority girls do. When Elle tries to join the study group at Harvard, she brings muffins and joy, but she's turned away and bullied. I think it's interesting how this movie challenges our ideas of these things. Even me as a girl, when I watched this intro, I absolutely loved it because I love girly things. This very much resonates with me, but I would also be lying if I didn't think that this also seemed a little bit ditzy. And this movie really challenges that because by the end, you realize that liking these things doesn't mean you can't also be strong, intelligent, and a high achiever. In the DVD movie commentary, Reese Witherspoon said she actually spent time with sorority girls in preparation for the movie. She didn't want Elle to be a stereotype of what she thought the sorority girls would be, and she said that when she hung out with them, they were so enthusiastic and well-mannered and supportive and just had a really positive vibe. And so she reflected that in Elle, and that's also reflected in the rest of the girls in the house. Obviously, there's still some nuance here. There is a dark side to beauty, and girls can be vicious, and sorority culture can be toxic, but this movie isn't about those themes, so it's not necessary to show them. The point of this movie is to challenge your expectations, to not let first impressions discount others. This opening gives you a very specific first impression, and so that's why it's important to challenge what you think that impression is. In this case, on femininity, girls, and blondes. It's a simple message that I think can be appreciated by most people. It is definitely geared to girls, and I think it's mostly girls who will resonate with the dumb blonde stereotype, but the story is universal and that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, which is exactly what happens with Elle. Elle's character has such a fantastic introduction. Before we even see her face, we see all these stereotypical girly things that she does to get ready, plus several details in her room that help establish her character. We learn she's the president of the sorority and was homecoming queen, so we can tell that she's social, involved, and quite popular. There are dried roses on top of Cosmo magazines, which signal a possible lover. The magazines, which are all the latest editions, show her interest in fashion. Plus, if you didn't know, Elle, the character, is actually named after Elle, the fashion magazine, and I just love that detail. I think it's so cute. This movie is also based on a book, in case you didn't know, so we have Amanda Brown to credit for that. The Prada bag and matching Tiffany's necklace to her bracelet shows her wealth. Her chihuahua is also fashionable. Everything is an opportunity to express herself. Something I thought was really interesting in the behind the scenes for this movie was how they discussed how to make a rich sorority girl seem sympathetic. But they did that by making Elle's character seem incredibly genuine. This comes through in the first line that she says, talking about restaurants, Madonna, and shopping. She has a warm, friendly tone. And when Bruiser gives her the card, she's gracious and immediately shows her gratitude to her friends. This tells us she's kind, and from the support she's received so far, she's well liked. Therefore, we're more likely to like her too. Her personality shines so brightly that her aesthetic is really just a background piece to a relatable story. Even with her costume design, although it's intricate and fun, it was thoughtfully put together so that it wasn't overly distracting and lavish. The costume she's introduced in is a vibrant and flirty dress, but it still has some innocence to it. The dress is flowy, long, and classy. It's effortless rather than standoffish or elitist, noticed despite her wealth and queen bee status. The flower in her hair references the Hawaiian theme party she was getting ready for and is a nod to the tropical Californian theme in the movie. We learn the card's a good luck card because she's possibly getting engaged later that night, and even though we have this info now, there's still a possibility that he might not propose, so we're still intrigued to find out what happens. This introduction scene sets the vibe so well for Elle to be a stereotypical dumb blonde, and what's even better about it is that they immediately combat this assumption in the next scene. When she's picking out her engagement dress, Elle is psychologically smart. She wants a dress that will match her emotions and represent an image that Warner, her boyfriend, wants to see. The dress has to be special but not bridal, and she doesn't want Warner to think she knows he's going to propose so that she doesn't damage his pride. It's a considerate and complex thought process, and she's not naive when the sales associate tries to scam her. She leverages her knowledge of fashion, and not just the latest trends, but the technicalities of materials, fabrics, and stitching. Going from the intro right into this scene is such a perfect sequence of events that reflect the rest of the story, setting expectations and then challenging them. A misjudgment of character happens with almost everyone in this movie, from the esteemed lawyer professor who turns out to be a creep and taking advantage of his power position, to the frigid and harsh Professor Stromwell, who ends up giving Elle the encouragement she needs at her lowest point, and who also gets her hair and nails done at the same salon as Elle, to Brooke Wyndham, who everyone thinks is guilty but is innocent, to Vivian, who seems cold-hearted but is a sweetheart who is just jealous. Elle is no different. She proves the judgments of her ex, parents, peers, teachers, and employer wrong, even when she's targeted, treated unfairly, and bullied. She's one of my favorite strong female characters because she embraces her femininity, holds her own, and works for her achievements, and at the same time, never compromises on her interests. She still finds time to work out, to go to the salon, and put together a fashionable outfit just because she likes it. Doing things differently is how she stands out. When she arrives at the courthouse in the end, she's come full circle visually. She has her bouncy hair, pink and glitter, just like she did in the beginning. She's embracing her true self again to the fullest, now stronger than ever. By the graduation scene, Perfect Day, the song that was used in the intro, plays again. It's so rewarding because originally it wasn't the perfect day. Warner did not propose to her, but now she truly does get her happy ending, graduating with honors and with a guy that definitely deserves her. How memorable this scene is definitely subjective, but I think that if you grew up in the 2000s and watched movies like this, there is a high chance that hearing Hoku's Perfect Day makes you think of this movie. And this opening shot of the silky, luscious hair is so iconic. I wanted this hair so bad when I was a kid. Maybe you were even motivated to have a getting ready routine like Elle. It's so memorable that it even has its own cameo in Wednesday, which I thought was so funny as an unpredictable horror movie for her. When you look at other intros in this genre, they aren't one of the main iconic things of the movie. I love 10 Things I Hate About You, for example, but that movie starts with a bunch of establishing shots over opening credits that really aren't that memorable. Or we can look at a more modern movie like To All the Boys I've Loved Before. But honestly, I completely forgot about this intro until I looked it up again. I'm well aware that this opening does not have the big budget or cinematic score that some of these other openings have, but what makes it so great isn't the high stakes or special effects or grand scale. It's the strong aesthetic and how it relates so effectively to the overall story. It stands out in its simplicity. Fun fact, this entire intro, without the shots of Reese Witherspoon, were shot as the last things for the movie. And this girl that you see is not actually Reese. They used a stand-in for her. So even the production process was creative logistically. I don't necessarily think it's better than some of these other movie openings, but I do think it's fantastic for its own genre, and it's one of my personal favorites. I'd also love to know if you have a favorite intro and why. I also love Bring It On and that iconic cheer. I also love the character intros of Miranda Priestly from The Devil Wears Prada and the Plastics from Mean Girls. Subscribe because I'll probably do videos on all those movies eventually. This is a bit of a different video for me, but I watched Legally Blonde the other day and I saw this intro and I was like, that's so good. It's so iconic. I have to talk about it. So let me know if you liked this video. I hope you have the perfect day and the perfect night. Thank you so much for watching.